again feel really fortunate that soon, because some people, it takes them a long time to figure out kind of exactly what they want to do and where their passions lie, and to be able to kind of make a career path around their what they just love. But what I found in my early 20s as I was coming out of college is that while I was taking some college courses, I'd been exposed to particularly women documentary filmmakers. And these were, say, filmmakers who had actually, I mean, initially my exposure was to, in certain classes, were like filmmakers who'd been in that second wave feminist movement, in the 1970s, people like Joyce Chopra and Martha Coolidge, um, and just kind of asking basic questions around why it was that they felt so essentially unfulfilled, even though they supposedly had like everything that they were supposed to kind of have in life. And so they were making stories, they were kind of picking up the camera and making stories around that. They were also fighting for equal rights, within the context of an era where they didn't have equal rights. So they were looking at these questions, but that quickly also opened the door for me because obviously this was in the 1990s. So I began just looking at a lot of different documentaries made by many women, including films by Zainabu Irene Davis and Akoya Chinzira, and and also then at the same time, basically, I thought that I might want to make documentaries, but ended up going into this graduate program at the Ohio State University for women's studies, that focused on kind of studying media and popular culture. And that kind of introduced me to a lot of classic films. So films that were made in the studio system, in the studio era in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, and gave me a lot of really interesting tools for analyzing those classic era films, and especially movies that were featuring, say, really strong female leads, and characters that were complex, and just big movie stars that at that time were actually still quite popular. People that we talked about, like Betty Davis and Katharine Hepburn and Joan Fontaine. And so I actually made a lot of connections between these documentaries by women who were essentially just picking up the camera. And sometimes when I say that, like very heavy cameras and a lot of equipment and a lot of heavy lighting, because it wasn't this, it wasn't quite like it is today. But and either training each other, finding ways through collectives, and workshops and organizations and true kind of feminist associations to train each other and to self-train, to tell their own stories and to get their kind of find ways to put kind of the issues that they were interested in on screen, and to make those connections with these classic movies, that were also all about kind of how are these women's stories being told, and what is it about, like, are their perspectives being kind of represented on the screen, and asking the same kinds of questions about classic films. Are they simplistic representations, or are they more complicated than they seem at first sight?